Looking to improve your life, brush up on your personal growth techniques? You are in the right place. Welcome to Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap.
Hello, this is Kevin Dunlap with Life's Little Lessons, and welcome to today's show. Today I have a special guest I've met just a few months ago here in Las Vegas. And when we met, we actually met at a small mastermind meeting. Then we happened to run across again at a public speaking event as well. And I felt very connected to this woman. And so much so I wanted her to be on the show today. The lady that I'm going to be announcing today, her name is Erin Vazquez. She has a company called Erin Vazquez Success Coaching, and she is a success coach. In this particular business, she's just starting out. She's 8 months into running her business. So this is a perfect person, in my opinion, for you guys that are out there that are just looking to get started with a business. Because this lady is new, getting started. She's going through a lot of the challenges, some of the great successes that she's also been having. So I want to introduce you to Erin Vazquez. Erin, welcome to our show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And you look lovely today. For all you people out there that are on audio that can't see her, she absolutely looks wonderful. And this is also a good note that I want to make as well, because this is a video as well as an audio podcast. So you can find us on YouTube. So just follow the links at the very bottom of this description, and you can actually see the video as well. So, Erin, anyway, thank you for welcome to our show. And you were telling me right before we started recording that you've been a success coach, and you got your training through a company called Tad James for your certification. And you've been a business coach for right about 8 months now. How's that going for you?
You know, it's going really well. I knew for a really long time that I wanted to be a coach, but I didn't necessarily have the tools or the framework within to go out and do that. So basically, I didn't have the confidence. And once I went out and got the tools and the certification and everything, I'd say I spent probably about the first 4 months like a little Tasmanian devil, like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And then probably after about 4 months, I actually went back to Tad James and got the next level of certification. And after that, I committed myself to a little more structure, a little more systems. That, of course, is still a work in progress, but it's a little less Tasmanian devil and a little more grounded, focused, and strategic, I would say.
Okay. Would you say the Tasmanian devil phases, was that actually very educational, even though you were going all over the place?
Yes, it was amazing. There was something about the training. First of all, connecting the tools with like almost lifelong desire to go out and help people. I was so excited and so invigorated, and I didn't care. There was something about me that had let go of the fear and the timidity that I think I had really held me back for a really long time. I just didn't care anymore. So I started showing up to pretty much every networking event that I possibly could, telling everyone what I do. And sometimes I would focus more on the coaching. Sometimes I would focus more on the hypnosis. And everywhere I went, people would be like, oh, tell me more about that. And that's also where kind of like based on instinct, I would talk to people and offer different kinds of packaging structures or maybe an hourly structure. I didn't know. I mean, there were definitely recommendations when I went and got my training, but then I'd actually be in practice with people, in sessions with people. And from there, I've learned a lot of little things that add to that structure that I was talking about that I've integrated into my business since.
Okay. And you just mentioned that you not only do success coaching, but you also do things with hypnotism. Is that correct?
Yeah. Within my practice, there's a lot of Neuro Linguistic Programming. I know that you've studied that as well. And even more so, where I got my certification, that was a company founded by a man named Tad James, and he created something called Time Line Therapy, which is this amazing process that helps people basically release negative emotions. It's been really effective for people with PTSD, with depression, who have survived trauma, and it's different than any kind of therapy that I've ever experienced. And trust me, I did a lot of it back in the day, in the sense that I actually don't need to be told by my clients the content. It's all about the structure and reframing the structure of their memories and the emotions that they attach to it. So symptoms of PTSD and all sorts of things, they basically have a new relationship with their memories. I'll put it that way. So if it's appropriate with a certain client, I will integrate timeline therapy with them. If it's appropriate with a certain client, I will integrate hypnotherapy in it too. I try to do that with everyone though, because I call hypnotherapy, it's like a spa day for your unconscious mind. You walk out and you just feel relaxed and gorgeous and glowing. It's great. Now,
is this something you also do for yourself? Can you do it on yourself, or is it?
All hypnosis is a form of self-hypnosis. So yes, I do use like guided meditations and guided hypnosis. That works for me because I would say that I have a really healthy inner monologue. So there's certain tracks that I use that I find really handy. Timeline therapy you can do on yourself as well. And once you learn the tools of Neuro Linguistic Programming, you can use that in your everyday life. And that's something that I tell my clients, like some of them, they might only need to see me for, 12 sessions. And some of them might take a little bit longer. Wherever you are is absolutely perfect. But at the end of the day, I don't want it to be a codependent relationship. I want them to walk away with the tools embodied in them so that when something comes up, it's not like they have to run to my office and talk to me or go through a process, but maybe they can go ahead and help themselves. That's not to say that as you progress in life, you need more help or like more tweaking or fine tuning or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I really want people to be able to overcome their obstacles on their own easily and effortlessly.
And what kind of obstacles have you come across? I know you can't really share what your clients have gone through. You can't share their names or anything like that just for your own anonymity. What kind of obstacles have you helped people go through?
There was one client who was exhibiting symptoms of agoraphobia. So she wasn't leaving her house, and she's a really, really talented artist. She wasn't leaving her house. She was having crippling panic attacks, and everything was a trigger. Her depression was off the hook, not off the hook in a good way. And her history was such that, it breaks my heart to even think about it, but there was sexual assault at the hands of people that were trusted and protected within the family. And through several sessions of timeline therapy, there was a real clear progress from just imploding and being riddled by anxiety. And she's blossomed to, maybe we talk every 4 or 5 weeks, just as a little check-in. But she's blossomed to going out to galleries and getting her artwork in there, to running her own Etsy shop and making her own money off of her art and really blossoming into the local art scene where she lives. That's probably they're all my favorite stories, but that was a really extreme case. And now she has the tools. She has her little mantras, and she knows how to do certain things for herself, the hypnosis and the timeline therapy. Yeah.
Wow, that's saying a lot, and that's congratulations to helping somebody that's afraid to go outside to actually go outside now, showcasing her work, and she's able now to get her name out there and create an entire business, or people even get to find out who she is. And I'm sure even her art, I'm assuming you say art, that she's a painter is what I'm assuming.
She's a painter, and she makes these really great little sewn together creatures. They're adorable. I don't want to say what they are specifically because of anonymity, but yeah. And thank you for acknowledging me for that. But it's my clients who do the work. I just give them the tools. You know what I mean? So she did it. She stepped through the fear and pushed herself. And boy, did she have to push herself. There were some days there's a really delicate balance of tender loving care and compassion that I have to bring to the table, and using that tender loving care and compassion to sometimes be really stern and say, these stories no longer stand. These stories no longer can have any power over you if you say you want XYZ result to be free of the anxiety or get the promotion or whatever it is.
Yeah, those stories no longer serve her, so why even acknowledge them? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And how did you come across Tad James? And the reason I'm asking this because I also did NLP training. However, I went through their son, Matt James. So all my training, I don't know if you knew that or not. Because when you said Tad James, like I remember Matt James was how I got my experience with that. And that was a few years ago as well.
Okay.
So how did you decide to get into success coaching? What was it that number one, caused you to go through the certification through Tad James, and then second, get your second certification, and then getting into success coaching? How did you find that for you?
Well, so I was really fascinated with Tony Robbins and his ability to seemingly magically just change people's lives. And I was like, how does he do that? Like, how can you just it's not magic. There has to be a mechanism. So I did a little research into okay, how does he do that? And I learned about Neuro Linguistic Programming. And then I went and benefited from it firsthand at UPW November 2016 when he coached me. And it was such a profound experience. 30 minutes with him. And I recommend this to nobody. I can't recommend this, but there was something about it. A year ago, I was lost, to say the least. And I've also suffered from anxiety and depression. And 30 minutes with Tony, I went back to my hotel that night and I looked at my little cocktail of antidepressants, and I just had a fully congruent thought, and that thought was no. And I haven't taken any medication since. Again, do not try this at home. That's extremely dangerous. But that was the power of the unconscious mind just saying, you're done with this, right? Absolutely. Then I knew that it wasn't hocus pocus, none of that. Before I had gone to UPW and experienced that, I knew a little bit about NLP. I started looking up NLP courses, and I found Tad James here in Las Vegas. And I think I just filled out a form and sent it off and kind of forgot about it. And then a few days after I had come back from UPW, I'm one of those that believes in magical thinking and things happen for a reason and all the connections. I'm definitely one of those mixed with practicality. A couple days after I came back from there, I got a phone call from one of the women who works there, and she was the one who did the training at the practitioner level. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, lady, you got 10 minutes, and then of course, an hour and a half later, I was like, all right, how do I sign up? What she had promised was that I would have all the tools that I needed by the end of the training to go out and start my practice. And she told me a little bit more about timeline therapy, which I didn't really know about. In retrospect, there's a lot of timeline therapy that happens at UPW. And then the hypnosis that also happens at UPW too. But yeah, she was telling me about that. And also she was using her NLP skills to really get inside my mind and make sure that it was a fully congruent fit, which it was. So I went in March of 2017, and it was from there that was my Tasmanian Devil phase. And when I got there, I loved the material so much. I loved it so much. I've never been that geeked out by anything before. And I knew this was the thing for me, and there was absolutely no doubt. And then in the spirit of excellence, with the offer of being able to be certified at a master's level and deep dive even more, it was a no-brainer for me. So I went to the master's level certification in July, and I'll be doing trainer's training in about a year from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're just using the skills and techniques that you've learned to help with your clients and possibly even help with yourself as well.
All the time. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So this has been, the recording of this video is actually November 2017.
Yes.
And so we're talking about, she started in March, which is the third month. November is the 11th month. That was 8 months ago. And
yes.
Then in July, which is the 7th month, you've got your master's level. And that was 3-4 months ago now. You're using these techniques and you're building your business. So the reason I'm actually, I don't normally like to date my audios or my trainings. However, this one is kind of different than normal. Is because she's not even been doing this for a year, and she started her training 8 months ago. And now you've got a thriving business, and you've helped people as well.
Yes.
So I want to applaud you for doing all that, because one of the things I tell a lot of other people that are just starting to get into a business, and if they're hesitant about getting started, and I'm sure that Erin will back me up on this, is if you don't start your business, then you're taking from society.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is this: if Erin didn't go to that training, that lady that had the issues with agoraphobia, she still will be locked into her own house right now.
Yeah.
So if Erin, you did not do it, that's just picking one of your clients. Now, for those of you out there that are starting about getting a business, and it doesn't even matter what that business is, you're going to be making changes in people's lives. Yes. And if you actually say, well, no, I don't want to, I'm too scared to get started. To me, that's one of the biggest takes that you could do in society is you've got a skill, you've got something out there that you could provide somebody else, and you're not willing to do that.
Right.
So that's why I'm so passionate. That's why I'm dating this actual episode. Is because of that. That is something that's huge for me. And I've heard this so many times as I'm building my businesses. Who can I help out there? And I don't care what it could even be a cleaning business. It doesn't matter what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really, you're absolutely right. You don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be bringing people out of their houses. If you have a talent, if you have a purpose, that there's something in your heart that you were put here on earth to do, I promise you, there are people here who need that, including cleaning, including accounting, whatever it is, including marketing, whatever it is. And I understand that it can be really, really frightening to take that first step because there are unknowns, right? But it's the first step. Once you take that first step, and for me, it was studying how the results of coaching could even be possible. And that was necessary for me because I had a lot of limiting beliefs and decisions around the coaching industry because I had hired one or two coaches in the past that, let's say, they were disappointing, right? So my fear was, what if I end up being one of those hacky coaches? Or another thing that was running through my head is I spent a lot of time in Northern California, in Sonoma County specifically, where you can't sneeze without hitting a shaman or a coach, right? Like, they're everywhere there, which is great. That's really, really great. But then there was this thing about scarcity. I was like, oh, if everyone's a coach, then what place do I have in the coaching world? Well, there's an abundance of resources. There's an abundance of people who are looking for people just like you, whoever is watching this or whoever is listening to this, waiting for you to connect with them. And if you don't put yourself in the spotlight, if you don't stand on your platform and say, this is what I do, then there's no way they're going to find you ever. Mm-hmm. So, anyone who's scared or hesitant to take that first step, I would encourage you to do the thing or get the information or find the mentor that will help you get over that first step. And for me, it was kind of like going and looking behind the kimono at UPW and then going and getting the grounded education at Tad James that actually gave me the techniques behind the thing that just seemed so magical.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad that we're not just talking about coaching here, even though I do interview a lot of coaches. And to be honest with you, most coaches also have a coach. So there is an abundance out there. I mean, you could be coaching. Let's say, for example, Erin is a success coach, but maybe she wants to hire a fitness coach or maybe a personal trainer or anything else like that. I mean, all coaches also have either accountability partners, so they have coaches, or they're open to being coached by other people. So,
well, I would say that I don't want to throw shoulds out there. I don't like to should all over people, but I would say that if you are an entrepreneur of any kind, a coach or a mentor is absolutely key. I have one coach that I turn to a lot for kind of business development. She's a coach who's a little further down her journey in success than I am. She brings a couple of different perspectives to the table that were offered at Tad James. She was trained elsewhere. So I thought it was really good to get a different perspective. And then I have someone who has been trained at the same school that I have been, that I go to do some of the things that need to be done, in terms of emotional health. Like, I can't, from what I know and from what I believe, I cannot fully serve my clients if I'm not keeping my stuff okay either. So if something happens, as it does in life, I got to clean that up. Otherwise, I have no business stepping into my coaching office with my clients. We had to reschedule this call because last week my grandma passed away. So I rescheduled with you immediately, and I canceled some appointments with some clients that happened those next couple of days because I knew my capabilities. And so what did I do? Over the weekend, I got with my coach and did a bunch of Time Line therapy and got everything that I needed. It's still very sad, but you have to be, no matter what business you're in, you have to be working on yourself constantly.
And again, my condolences to your family and your grandmother.
Thank you. Thank you.
And in all honesty, she did cancel last week because we were supposed to be recording on Wednesday, I believe, last week. And then I was actually surprised when Erin reached out to me yesterday saying, hey, I'm ready for our call. I was like, but it's only been like 6 days. I was waiting a month before I was going to call you again. So thank you for doing that. And now one of the things I do want to talk to you about as well is that, tell me about, if you don't mind sharing, getting that first client.
Okay, this is where really, really beautiful things happen, and you have to be willing to tell people what you're doing. And you have to be open to receiving and little tiny miracles. At UPW, there's the fire walk, the infamous or famous fire walk, however you look at it. We did it several hours after Tony had coached me in front of 10,500 people. So I was I was pretty visible, right? So a gentleman came up to me as we were all walking out to the fire pits and introduced himself to me. And we just started talking, and we did the fire walk, and we celebrated together afterwards and all of that good stuff. And we just kept in touch. And then around February, he texted, hey, how's everything going? How are you doing? And I was like, great. I'm going to open a coaching business next month. And he's like, cool. I need a coach. And I was like, great. How is March 29th, which was, I think, 10 days after I graduated from Tad James. I don't know why I did the 10-day period. I don't know why. So I had him in the calendar, and I remember wrestling with those feelings like, am I going to be good enough? Like, what am I going to do? Especially, and since he's an older gentleman who's made millions of dollars in the stock market. He's in my head, like, Mr. Wall Street, like, cool guy and everything. Like, what could he possibly learn from me? Right. So I had to put those feelings and the beliefs on the shelf and just receive this generous offer and receive the miracles. Now, I think a lot of people might be tempted to say, oh, well, that's really easy. You went and you met someone and he was being really generous. But by going out and declaring to the universe that, first of all, I was at that event to learn from the very best in the industry so that I could be good in the coaching industry, and being there and saying like, well, I'm here to learn because I'm eventually going to be a coach. Like, I just kept on saying it out loud over and over and over again. And it turns out that he and I still 8 months later have a coaching relationship. And we just actually bumped it up. We went from success coaching and shifted it into business coaching as he launches his first book and wants to shift his company from finance to a couple of other things too. So that was my first client. I'll tell you about the client after that, which wasn't so like miraculous, because that might be a little more practical for people. Like not everyone can be like, oh, I'm going to go into a huge event. It was getting out there and showing up to every single network event that I possibly could. It was just learning, going out there, screwing up my elevator pitch if they gave you like that 30 seconds to talk to people, shaking people's hands, listening to them, speaking in earnest, really being myself when I showed up, and really showing up in a spirit of service, not in a spirit of like, oh my God, I wonder if there's a client here today. Showing up and being like, I wonder how I can serve people today, whether if that's just being a sounding board or whether that turns into a full-blown client who's going to really benefit from those services. I don't know, but that's been the bulk of my business, is just showing up to networking events.
Well, that's good. And the fact that I love the fact that you put a date on the March 29th, even though it's kind of a pointless date, but it's a date for you. And when you actually put a date on something, the universe does work in unusual ways. And I'm just going to talk about this show, this Life's Little Lessons show. This is November 2017, and in October 2017, at the beginning of October, I'm saying, you know what, I'm going to relaunch this show, interviewing entrepreneurs. I've got 19 episodes before this, which I'm now calling season 1, and which was all on personal growth, personal development stuff, and you're more than welcome to listen to those. The season 2 was all about entrepreneurs, and so that would explain the hiatus that haven't been around for 7 months, because that was May of earlier this year. And then around after going to a meeting on a Saturday, I pulled out my cell phone, recorded a video while I was in downtown Las Vegas. It's called the Fremont Experience for those of you that know Vegas. And I said, okay, Life's Little Lessons season 2 is going to be October 26th. That's the day it's going to be. I put it out to the world. It's like, and then I realized, hey, I'm going to be gone the 15th through the 20th for an event, and I'm not going to be doing recordings. And then I started calling a few people like Erin as well. I said, hey, would you like to be part of my show? This is before I even knew when I was going to be doing recordings. And October 21st came around. It's like, okay, I've got to actually start. I've got 5 days to launch this show, and I have zero recording. So on that Tuesday, before the 24th, I recorded Jim Gusick, which is episode 4 of this season. And then on the following Wednesday, I recorded Tracy, I recorded Junita and Melanie, which is episodes 1, 2, and 3. And then on the following Thursday, one day later, Tracy Samlo was our first guest on the show. And just putting it out there, like, okay, there we go, and there we go. And now just the momentum is carrying along with itself. Yes, because then after the second one, then the third one, I went to an event just a few days ago, and the speaker was saying, once you do something 10 times, you become very proficient with it. You do it the first time, might be a little shaky, maybe whatever. Second time, you're still learning. The third time, you're starting to develop that habit. But once you've done it 10 times, you've actually become pretty confident in your skills. So if you're out there, like say with Erin, you're going to 10 different networking events. You're giving 10 different elevator pitches. You're doing that. It's like, okay, I screwed that one up. And on that note, I could go off on a little tangent. Be okay with screwing up.
Yes.
One of the things I always tell people is, I don't always advise this, like you didn't advise about getting off the medication, would be, sometimes they'll say, if you're so nervous that you're going to screw it up, deliberately screw it up. Now you got it out of the way. You can only go better from there. So right there, if you go to, well, I'm not going to say that because this is not a current event. However, I just recently interviewed a lady from Montreal, Canada, and I put it on my Facebook page. I completely screwed up her name. I could not say her name right the first time I was introducing her, and then the second time I couldn't explain what she does for a living. I screwed it up 3 times. Like, you know what? And this is the first time I've ever done that. However, I caught it in outtakes and I uploaded it to Facebook. So, okay, people, this is me screwing up, and here's I'm doing a professional show, and this sometimes can go a little awry. So, but be okay with that. Actually, have fun with it sometimes.
Yes.
So if you're on stage and you trip and fall down, make a joke out of it. So,
I would absolutely agree. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about some of your successes and things like that, Erin, and I would also like to talk to you because not every person is going to have a 100% wonderful, beautiful business. You're going to have challenges along the way. That's why I'm so glad to have Erin on the show, because she's been in business less than a year. So this is ideal for some of you guys that are just getting started. And Erin, tell us a little bit about some of your early challenges that you had when you were just getting started. I know you talked about your first client being basically a friend of yours, and your second client being, you was a little bit more difficult. But tell me about some of your early challenges, either attaining the clients, getting yourself out there to have the confidence to talk to the clients, or challenges that you had once you took a client on. You can talk about any of those. It doesn't really matter.
I think attaining the clients, what I had to learn and what I'm still studying is the art of sales. That was not something I was proficient in or really excited about. And then once I realized, and that we touched on this, that sales is actually service, that there are actually people who will greatly benefit from being my client, then it's service. And then also knowing that a no or a no thank you, kind of like tripping and falling on a first date, whatever it is, it's okay. It's all right to graciously receive those and know that that's not the right client. But I think, and then on another note, I think what's really important is when you're scared, when you're nervous to show up to the networking events, just walk through it, because there's going to be other people there who are scared and nervous as well. And you never know, case in point, what kind of connections that you're going to make along the way that will support you in ways that you could have never imagined. But I think one of the biggest challenges that I've had since opening my business would be an issue of customer service. And it wasn't so much customer service as I screwed up as a professional really badly. I was completely unprofessional and just sent an email that was completely inappropriate. So I think that being one of the biggest challenges in my practice so far, I want to say that was probably about 4 or 5 months into my practice. And even though I love what I'm doing, I absolutely love it, it doesn't come without its challenges. And sometimes the challenges are last minute reschedules, or people are really attached to their stories and you have to get over your own stuff and be like, okay, that's their attachment to their stories. I've done everything I can. I've given them the tools. I lost my patience once and sent out an email that was completely inappropriate. I hit the send button and I felt sick immediately afterwards. I knew I had screwed up. Now, I think I simmered in that anxiety for a little while. And for anyone out there who's listening, who's already made a mistake, or who's scared they might make a mistake and hasn't been perfect the entire time through their practice, what I would say about that is that once I got over my fear and kind of that gut drop feeling that you get, I wrote her an email and got really square, super square on the fact that I made a mistake and gave her a little bit of insight of where it came from, of what was going on. And then I offered her a couple of different options: to refund the remainder of her contract, or to offer her 4 extra sessions, knowing that, like, free, knowing that she could probably use that support if she would be willing to step into that coaching client space with me again. So we got on the phone, and it wasn't a coaching call. I was there to listen, to hear, to be a human. I didn't have my coaching hat on. And we just talked it out like 2 human beings, regained the trust, and she took me up on those 4 additional sessions. That was probably one of the biggest obstacles. And that was also one of the biggest eye-opening moments of how important it is to make sure that I'm constantly checking myself and doing the work on myself, because what that outburst was something that I hadn't properly processed at the time. Now, it's going to be different in every single industry. However, when you make that mistake, which you will, I went to my dad, who was a family counselor for a really, really long time. I was like, hey, have you ever made a mistake with a client or a patient? And he's like, only hundreds of times. And I was like, all right. So it's a rite of passage, no matter what industry you're in. I would say own it. Don't avoid it. Don't deflect it. Just go and own it and apologize without any excuses. I only explained where I was coming from when I was pretty sure that she was ready to hear that. But before that, I let her vent. I took a little bit of she wasn't mean, but I just sat there and listened and heard all of the feedback. So that was probably one of the biggest eye openers for me.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing something so personal and so personal. That is, I don't know what other word to say there. And that you're willing to share that. And yes, we all make mistakes. We're all human. We are going to make mistakes. And obviously, when you make a mistake as big as that, now I'm sure Erin has learned, like, do not act out of passion with the client. Like, before I hit that send button, I'll wait till tomorrow to send it. Do I still feel the same way in the morning? Yes.
If my little heart is pitter-pattering while I'm typing, then no, that email gets to sit for a couple of days. And also, if something emotional happens or something knocks me off my game, or if something's knocking a listener off their game, it's okay to take some time and get back, like square back, and tell people you need a little bit of time to step out, right? Like I did with you and like I did with my clients last week, and go get yourself right. Just go do it. And if people don't understand, that's their stuff. But more often than not, people are going to be incredibly gracious and appreciate the honesty.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. When you take responsibility, I think people understand and are willing to, in my opinion, are willing to listen to you. Because all of us have things that brings us down, and we never know what it is. If you've got that rude waitress, well, she's not necessarily rude all the time. Otherwise, she would never have a job. Maybe, there's something else going on in her life or his life or what have you.
True.
As we're coming a little bit closer to the end, I would like to find out a little bit, some information from you, some lessons that you've learned so far as being in business for the few months that you've been in business. However, just to be something that's kind of closing it out for the entrepreneur that's getting started. What are some lessons that you've learned that you would like to impart to somebody else?
When you're getting started, the best state to be in is in one of curiosity. Go to those networking events and ask all the stupid questions. Just ask questions. It doesn't matter if they're doing the same thing as you or something different than you. Business is fundamentally the same, and everyone has something that you can learn from them. And whether you receive that and apply it in your own business or don't, you're getting the information. Being curious is so much more effective than assuming you're the expert. If you go and receive a certification and say, boom, I'm all done, I've learned everything that I need to learn, you're closing the doors, man. You're creating some boundaries and keeping out who knows what you can do. I've listened to so many podcasts from creative people, from business people, from investors, and it's crazy how much that applies to my business and helps me make a lot of different connections. Though when you're in the coaching space with me, things are going to seem a little, we're talking hypnosis, we're talking unconscious mind. It might seem a little woo-woo on the surface, but I'm out there studying the practical things, asking questions of anyone that I possibly can, being really curious, and you never know what's going to happen. I think one of my most favorite experiments recently, after my Tasmanian Devil phase, and I got really grounded and realized, I came back to my original dream of coaching people in the creative and entertainment industries. I had kind of forgotten about that because I was so preoccupied with I got to go get clients. I realized that LinkedIn was a really valuable tool because you can search for people by industry, right? And I've been connecting with people. And anyone who's willing to take my connection, I send them a note saying, would you be willing to sit on the phone with me for 15 minutes? I'm not going to pitch you my business. I'm not going to try to sell you my coaching services or anything like that. I just want to talk to you. And some people have been, actually a lot of people have been so generous with their time. So I've spoken to everyone from NBC executives to stand-up comedians here in Las Vegas. And there's so many different things to learn from all of these people. And even though it may not be pertinent for me to understand how the investment structure of a television show or a movie works, there's still all of these connections, and you never know how it's going to serve you in the future, right? So I would say just get really curious and be humble. That again is going outside of my comfort zone. There's a little bit of fear there, talking to these like really fast talking executives. They're like, okay, what are we on the phone here? Like, what's going on right now? You know, they're talking really fast and they're like, look, kid, I don't know what you want from me, but let me tell you something. It's all about the money, da 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 da. And you're like, whoa, okay, cool. And then you talk to someone else who's a really sensitive filmmaker, who's sensitive to mental health awareness, like I am and everything. And she wants to connect on a completely different way. The curiosity, just being curious and knowing that there's always something more to learn. That's probably been my favorite thing, like just being open to learning. And then also, I think the most important thing, if you have that thing inside of you, if there's that purpose that you really want to connect with, this has been the greatest thing that I've ever done, was finally going after this thing that I've been dreaming of for years and years and years. It's changed my life. I won't say that it's been a straight line up, right? There's been ups and downs and really great months and months where I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my coach? But it's been learning, and I'm so on purpose that even when things get tough, I can square up and apologize to a client or get out of bed and come up with something creative to go out and get another client or make a new offer or whatever it is. If you have that purpose inside of you, when life deals you tough stuff, which it will, if you are on purpose, if you are connecting with what you were born to do, which you were born to do something, you're going to be able to move through the obstacles so much more gracefully. So those would be my two big takeaways. Curiosity and go for it. Yeah.
And I'm glad you're saying that, because by being curious, you are keeping yourself open to new things. And yeah, once you say, I know it all, then it doesn't matter which industry you're in, then you're done. You could be that executive at NBC, say, well, I know it all. Like, well, no, things changed. Millennials do things differently now. And you always have to be open to new things, even if it's in your industry or it's not. I mean, if it is in your industry, things are constantly changing that as well. So I know you as a coach, you still read. You said you still listen to podcasts, and I'm sure you probably heard some things on a podcast like, that's a good nugget that I could use with this client, or this is what I could do with this client. Yeah. So so keep your options open. And I'm glad you said that as well, because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So I do a lot of driving. So I'm constantly listening to audiobooks. So listen to things that will help you open your mind. Audiobooks, podcasts, radio talk shows, whatever it may be. I would say probably tune out those, regular TV stuff. I would say try to tune out the negativity that's all out there. And just not saying that you should become a hermit, but you should really limit to what you are allowing into yourself and just be open and take those chances.
Yeah, and along with that, absolutely, I would agree. The content that you consume is shaping your mind in ways that you can't even comprehend. And along with that, be really protective of the conversations that you're in and the friends that you keep. Be in conversations with people who are along similar paths. Maybe they don't want to start the same kind of business that you do, but maybe they've started a business, or maybe they want a similar quality of life that you're achieving, or whatever it is that's driving you to start a business. If it's more freedom, more choice, the ability to make more money eventually after a lot of hard work, all of that stuff. make sure you're in conversations with people who are along that line, right? So that you can be nurturing all of that. This sounds kind of bad, but there's been a couple of friendships that have fallen to the wayside. And that's just the way it is. Not that they were bad people or anything, but the conversations were
gossipy?
not gossipy or complaining. Like they wanted to focus on problems and not solutions. And I'd be there like, oh, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? And then like no one would be excited about that. And that was just really difficult for me. So I would say not only the content, the books, the television, the podcasts, all of that stuff. Hey, we all have our little guilty pleasures. I completely get that. But the content and the conversations and the company that you keep shape who you are.
Now, who's been your biggest supporter in you starting your business?
My husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad you said that because I did not know that. I did not know the answer to that question when I asked it. And I knew you were married, but I did not know if that was true or not. And you do need to get support from the people that you surround yourself with. And when you say you lost a couple of friends, were they the ones that's like, oh yeah, go get them. You're going to be an excellent coach. Or are they going to say, well, what are you thinking you're doing? Or were they more cutting you down from starting your own business?
There was a disconnect of understanding. Like all of a sudden, there were fundamental shifts that happened in me once I started applying Neuro Linguistic Programming. And what I learned was that people liked me better when I was depressed because it was more comfortable for them. And this isn't meant to be a huge pat on the back, but I took a quantum leap from being really down in the dumps to just, like I said, Tasmanian deviling. The change was so profound that my husband took the same class that I did. He was like, what happened? And I was like, I can coach you, but you shouldn't coach your spouse. Don't do it. I can coach you, or you can go and do this, which it's perfect for his career. He's in the military. We could not be more different. He doesn't support in the sense that he's like, tell me all about how you're applying that new book that you read to a certain case. He's been the grounding rock. He's been the person who's like, okay, well, go try it. Like if you need to go try that, then go try that. Who's really believed in me. And I asked him about that a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, when I met you, I just saw potential in you. And at the time when he met me, I was a copywriter working at a branding agency in downtown Denver. And on paper, everything was okay, but I wasn't trying to go into the stratosphere. And that's just transformed over the last 5 years. So, yeah. Yeah.
And that's so good. I'm so glad that you have a spouse that's there to support you. So that's huge. And if you're starting a business as well and your spouse, let's say if there's out there to support you, that's going to affect you so heavily in your successes. Now, if you have a spouse that doesn't support you, then you do need to have some conversations. I'm not going to go much further than that.
I would also say, make sure you distinguish between support and understanding, because I'm not sure my husband fully understands everything that I do. And I realize that I don't need him to, but he supports. He's there cheering me on. There's a fundamental difference between that.
And then with your closest friends, the ones that are not there to support you, I mean, may or may not understand what you're doing. It may be those times to let those people out of your lives. I know, like when I started writing my book, Designing Your Own Destiny, which was about 2 years ago, it was November 2015 when I wrote it. They went live on October 26th. 2016, which was the launch of this second season of this podcast. That's why I picked that date. When I told people I was writing a book, my closest friends were like, oh, how can we support you? Rather than say, what do you know about writing a book? So it is who you associate with is also important. So if you're going to these networking events, maybe, yes, you can find a great client. Maybe you can even give them a referral. I mean, which is great, which is great karma. However, now you're also dealing with other entrepreneurs or other even aspiring entrepreneurs And those are people that are in a similar boat that you are. And those may be great people to go and grab a beer with, or grab a coffee or a lunch with, because these are the people you want in your life. They could even be a competitor, or they're not. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, when I started doing business here in Las Vegas in real estate, I started doing things in lease options. I found another gentleman that was doing the exact same thing. Technically, he's my competitor. And after we had coffee, this was a few years ago, I said, let me help you market your homes. I've got twice the inventory now. Like say, for example, Erin and I are in a similar business. I'm more in the business coaching and success coaching. Maybe I have a client that I don't really resonate with that Erin does. Okay, well, how can we support each other? So we go to these networking events, find these people, find these support, find ways how you can help each other out. And if you're in a similar industry, how can you create a symbiotic relationship with each other so that you can both benefit? And that is coming from abundance there instead of scarcity.
Absolutely.
Well, Erin, I do appreciate you for being on our show today. And it has been a great pleasure having you here. And
this is so much fun.
It's been fun for me as well. Just doing an interview show was extremely nervous for me. I wasn't sure how I was going to do this. What is it going to look like? What is it going to sound like? Is anybody going to be listening to it? Is it going to be effective or not? However, after I came back on the 21st of October and I recorded my first couple of shows, it's like, hey, just do it. Just do it. And just really not practice
action. You took the action instead of like staying in the what if. Yeah.
Or like, I would do it. Okay, no, I would do it sometime in November. But once I put October 26th on the date, and I said, and like I just mentioned before, Designing Your Own Destiny came out 1 year ago on October 26th. That's why I picked the date. It's like, this is for me to celebrate that win there. And it gave me a date, just like you said, March 29th. If you say, hey, today is November blah, whatever it is, and I want to have a new business started by, say, January 2nd of next year, and I'm not saying that as a New Year's resolution, I'm just saying that's a month and a half from now, is January 2nd is your launch date.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, and stick to your guns on that launch date.
Put it in the calendar.
Put it in the calendar. If you're starting a business, okay, what do I need? Okay, I need to go to the Secretary of State. Do I need an LLC or and get those fundamentals out of the way and just get started. Yeah. And you don't even have to have the LLC. You can still do doing business as you're getting started. There's really nothing stopping you with the exception of yourself. So just get started.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Erin, and I do appreciate you being on this show. And how, if some people wanted to call you to learn a little bit more about what it is that you do, I will be putting it in the description wherever this thing's being shown on. It's going to be on iTunes. It's going to be on Podbean, which is the site that actually that hosts my show. It's going to also be on my website under kevinadunlap.com under the media section. The video interviews will be under the video part, and podcast season 2 will be under. That's where the podcast, the audio version is going to be. How would you want people to contact you if they wanted to do business with you? I would suggest maybe a website, a Facebook page, or something like that.
Sure, yeah. You can just go to my website at erinvazquez.com and go through the contact page. Or if you feel like setting up a strategy session, you can do that on there too. And I'll be getting a hold of you either way.
And a strategy session is exactly what?
Oh, it's a 1 hour complimentary strategy session. If there was anything here that piqued your curiosity that you thought you might want to apply to your own life, a strategy session might be great. If you want to just have a virtual coffee or in real life coffee, if you're here in Las Vegas or I'm up in Northern California a lot, then my contact me page is absolutely perfect for that too.
Okay, well, fantastic, Erin. And that is, she's offering a complimentary 1 hour strategy session for those that are interested, and especially if you want to learn more about timeline therapy, which she talked about quite a bit during the show here. So, Erin, again, thank you for being on our show, and I really appreciate you being here. I feel that the guests that are listening to or watching this show have learned a lot. So, thank you on behalf of them and myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Looking to improve your life, brush up on your personal growth techniques? You are in the right place. Welcome to Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap.